Howdy guys, welcome to Collab Days Barcelona and welcome to my session, Advanced PowerShell Development for Office 365. So, who am I? My name is Rodrigo Pinto, I live in Lisbon, Portugal, and I'm an Office 365 SharePoint Solution Architect. Currently I'm working with a company called Storm, and I've been around the SharePoint version since the 2001 version. And I'm also an Office Apps and Service MVP from the past 11 years. Usually on this kind of sessions, I show a video contextualized with the subject, so enjoy.
Hey, kid. You got the piano. Come on.
Fractured fibula, giving him a mild sedative, so he could be able to go in tomorrow.
Daddy's gonna be so excited.
That killed him.
Look at the cute dog.
So this is the agenda. We will talk a little bit on the PowerShell within the Microsoft Cloud, existing commandlets, resources, all these kinds of interesting things that we can actually use to speed up or to make our PowerShell scripting more efficient. We will look into the enterprise workspace within the PowerShell. What kind of tools, what kind of mechanisms should we be aware when we're working with big companies with strict rules and a couple of constraints. We will look into also on the PowerShell classes, and I will show you a little bit on my real case scenarios within a couple of projects with the clients. So, PowerShell in the Microsoft Cloud. So these are the existing modules. So we have modules to deal with the Exchange. And basically, as most of you already know, Exchange is one of the most important parts within the Office 365. This module in Exchange deals also with Office 365 groups. And we have modules for security and compliance, for SharePoint Online, of course, for Microsoft Teams, Skype for Business. We have two modules for the Azure Active Directory, one model for right management, and we have also community-driven modules like the PNP PowerShell. Well, now one of the most frequent questions that I have within my clients and in some of the IT pros is, if Microsoft is just one supplier, how come they have so many modules? And the answer is quite simple. So although they have one product, and the idea there is to, in the future, to have everything related to that product on the same place, they do have separate teams. They do have teams specific for each one of the areas or the apps or the tools. So the reason why we're just seeing a bunch of commandlets being used for different parts of within the overall the Office 365 is because each one of them was created by a different team. So in Microsoft, they don't actually have one master person that manage this as the entire whole, right? So that's the reason why we have so many commandlets. Probably in the future we will have just one module for everything, although there's a couple of already community initiatives that tries to deal with this more or less, and I will talk a little bit more on the next slide. So useful resources. Connect Office 365 services is one of them. It's a module, a script, that with that script we can connect to multiple Office 365 services. We can connect to Azure Active Directory, to the Exchange Online, to the SharePoint Online, Teams. We can even connect to some of the on-premises services like the Exchange, or even get on-premises credential. So the script itself, it's one script that's actually calling Microsoft commandlets, so it's very useful. Another one is the Office 365 DSC module. And basically for the ones that don't know what DSC means, desired state configuration, and that's a Microsoft managed platform built in PowerShell that enables us to manage IT and development infrastructure with configuration as a code. So this module is an open source initiative, the Microsoft 365 DSC. It's led by Microsoft and supported by the community. The idea here is to write definitions on definitions of our Microsoft 365 tenant, and the module itself persists that configuration, and we can actually automate deployments, monitor. We can actually monitor the defined configurations, notify or acting on some of the configurations that we will have on our tenant. Very useful. PowerShell on the enterprise workspace. So I've been working with huge companies since the beginning of my professional life, and these are the three major scopes that usually the IT pro teams needs to consider. One of them is source control. So the source control is a place for you to put your file or script, and you can have multiple versions, and you can have, it's a central repository where a bunch of people within a team can contribute. Now the funny thing is, a few of my clients were thinking that the source control was just for developers. No, it assumes any kind of file. Then basically it's very useful for us to store the PowerShell scripts within a central repository also. So not just for developers. For that, usually we use the Git repositories, TFS on-prem, or even Azure DevOps that actually has the Git attached to it as a central repository. Another thing is the PowerShell repositories. Basically, it's a place where you can download, update, or even upload your own PowerShell modules or commandlets. One thing that usually happens within the corporate, they actually don't know what a PowerShell repository is, but they are using it. Whenever they need to install any module from Microsoft, from other type of suppliers, they are using usually using the PS gallery, and basically that's a PowerShell repository within the cloud. Another funny thing also, they didn't knew they can have a PowerShell repository within on-premises servers. Another important part is also to choose and to actually have like a common message regarding what is the editors that we are using, in this case on the PowerShell side. I'm saying this because I had a couple of clients in the past that they was actually extending the PowerShell ISE, and they realized after 6 months that there was another team extending also. So there was no proper communication between the company within the company, and so each one of the development teams were using their own and extending their own PowerShell editor. So the message here is, if we're doing PowerShell scripting, we should use, or if we should use and extend just one tool. So you have the PowerShell ICE from Microsoft, you have the code also from Microsoft, and you have Visual Studio to do the same thing. Repositories. So by default, we already have the PowerShell gallery present within our system. For registering PowerShell repository, we have two ways of doing it. One is telling where is that your PS repository is accessible by a website or by a local folder. And basically, you just type it register PS repository, the name of the repository, the source, script source location, and you attach the installation and the installation policy to it. For publishing a module, you use publish module, the name of the module, and the NuGet API key. Some important remarks. Imagine that you're testing or trying out some PowerShell commandlets or instructions. One thing I usually do, first of all, is run the start transcript commandlet. Basically, what it does, it keeps a record on anything that you type within the editor and save it on a text file. Basically, you have the outputs and inputs, and sometimes it's quite interesting or important for us to know that session, that PowerShell session, what we did, what executed, what failed, all this kind of thing. So you have this commandlet for that part. Another thing, and this is quite annoying sometimes, I often find PowerShell scripts with credentials and passwords hard-coded on the scripts. If you're part of that audience, stop doing that, because that's a huge break on the security and on compliance within the corporate or big enterprise. So for storing credentials within the cloud, usually we use Azure Vault. If you need to store the credentials and the passwords within a local system, your disk or even a file share, we use export CLI XML and import CLI XML to read and write the credentials within a file. So what happens is the user, if you use export CLI XML, the user, it's open, but the password is encrypted by the principal of your machine. Even if someone stole that file with the credentials, he cannot do anything because the password is actually attached to your machine. So it's very useful. Another thing, and that's one of the things that annoys me sometimes, is the way that we create the scripts. So basically, PowerShell, it's like an open script language. So you don't have those kind of things that we have on development part, like variables initialization, reference not being existing. So we use, usually on the top of the script, we use strict mode, and basically we have some kind of behavior to be imposed within our scripting. Okay, this is one of the ways of actually doing defense scripting. There's a name for defense scripting. Another thing very important, and this is more related to the exchange part. So sometimes when you're doing exchange online and you're doing scripting, one of the things that constantly happen is the editor crashes or the session went down or something like that. One thing that usually occurs is that you have your credential locked out because you're connected too many times. So for that, you have two options. Usually I run both of these options referred here. So basically we need to revoke the user session from the Office 365. So to connect it and then revoke the SPA user session itself, and we can actually do the same thing on a lower level regarding the Azure AD. So we can actually revoke the refresh token used for for the connection that was pending and suddenly got stuck there. Okay. PowerShell classes. It's quite interesting because most of the um, PowerShell IT users don't know that that classes are supported by PowerShell. By PowerShell, bullshit. PowerShell classes. It's quite interesting. Most of the people that are doing PowerShell doesn't know that PowerShell allows classes. It's not actually a class like we are used to on a development side. Basically, there's a couple of instructions for us to use within our PowerShell scripting tool that mimics a class. So class itself, it's an object. Basically, it's a model or a blueprint of an object, and that's the way you declare a class in PowerShell. Class, then the name of the class, nothing fancy. It is what it is. The classes itself have properties. Um, they are composed by data types, and basically data types can be a string, an integer, a boolean, those kind of PowerShell classes. It's interesting enough, most of the people that are doing PowerShell doesn't know that PowerShell allows classes. It allows since the version 5, and a class is nothing more than a model or a blueprint of an object. And basically, that's the way you declare a class within within PowerShell. So you put class and then put the name of the class that you want to put, and then that's it. As a class, it has a data type, name, a default value, modifiers, access and non-access modifiers. So on the data type, something simple, string, integer, a boolean. You put the name, and you can actually define a default value. And as we can do the same thing on a C# on a development, you can actually have public and hidden methods within. So the default modifier is public. Well, however, we never use the public keyword within the code, and we can also have static keywords on the properties as an instant or a static type. Okay, so this is an example. So public properties have a string. You define the alias, and then you find an integer, and then you have a static property called clan, and then you can actually have a hidden property, and you need to state the hidden with this keyword itself. Methods. So we have also methods. Basically, it's like a function inside of the class, and it can take arguments. And the must have is within the function. The function itself needs to return a value. Okay, it can be public or it can be static, and this is a couple of examples. As you can see, instance method to get alias. So we tend to use the this keyword also with a dollar as a predecessor. We define the static method as the property, and that's another static method with the parameters. Nothing new, nothing fancy. It's basically a way for doing object-oriented, kind of, right, within the PowerShell. We also can define a constructor. So the constructor itself, it's basically what you see here. You have the name of the class and you have parameters, and then you can attach those, and you can assign those parameters to internal to internal properties, and then you can actually leverage the creation of the class like this. Okay, so the constructor always needs to have the same name of the class, nothing new, nothing fancy. And then there's this keyword variable that describes the current instance of the object. So the this property name is used to reference the instance property, and you put this and then the method name just to simply use the method itself. Okay. We also have another special type that's the enumerator, and that's the way you do the enumerator in PowerShell. It can restrict lets a method restrict the arguments values that it can accept. And also another thing very interesting, we can have overload methods where you define multiple methods with the same name. So if you look, you can see get owner name and with no parameters, and you can have another method called get owner name with a string. And basically that works also in PowerShell. Another interesting feature is also the inherence. So basically we can define a base class and then have another class being inherit by that part, okay, by the parent. So here we're defining the provisioning feature. The provisioning feature itself has an internal method, and basically can use the methods from his parent. Okay, nothing fancy here. Again, it's kind of useful to being used this kind of mechanisms within PowerShell. One important part is actually how can we reuse how can you reuse classes? So for the PowerShell, usually what we do the import module whenever we need to import something that's on outside of a file. And basically for using classes, the import module doesn't work. So we need to use the using module statement. Okay, and the module itself needs to have at least to export one of the members. And another thing is also interesting, the using module that imagine that you're doing we are doing a class, and you need to import or need to use a model that has a class outside of that file. So the using module statement needs to be the first line on your script, or else it doesn't work. Okay, it's quite annoying sometimes, because if you need to have more than one class to be addressed, you need to have like an index PowerShell with all the instructions for loading the other modules, and then refer that part on the thing. I'll show you a couple of real cases, examples where I'm using that thing on a couple of projects. So demo time. Let me minimize the presentation. Okay, I already have a PowerShell script opened here. So let's define a class. So as you may notice, I love Marvel, so let's call it our class Avenger. Okay, all the Avengers have a name, so let's call it hero name. Yeah, let's give him some abilities. So for that thing, I will declare an enum abilities, and I will define a couple of them. So hammer, awesome shield, super strength. super strength. Okay, super strength. Strength. Strength, yeah. Oh, I was checking. Yeah, super strength. By defining this, let's do the abilities itself. Abilities and ability, that's okay. Let's put some hidden, using of the hidden modifier string. It's hidden on the heroes. Identity, that's identity, and let's try it. Another thing, static, and let's string country name, yeah, country. Okay, that's our class. Let me. Okay, again, I'm going to create an empty constructor, and I'm going to create also another one for the hero to have a name whenever we start that instance. String, and let's do name, and that's what's that word again? This hero name equals name. Okay, and structure. Okay, let's define an attack method. Attack. Okay, and let's put some kind of message here for us to know that some hero is attacking another one or another villain. Right, host. I will blast you with my, and I'll put the ability of the hero. Ability. It's quite nice, the syntax and the way that PowerShell looks into the classes and the properties, right? Ability, with my ability, I will blast you with my ability because my name is, and then I will put because my name is hero name. Okay, let's try it out. Avenger, and I call it Thor. Not this, Thor. Okay. And now what I would need to do is like this, Avenger, and new, and let's put Thor in the name, Thor, and let's attack. Let's call the method attack. Okay. Okay. Hit F5. I will blast you with my hammer because my name is Thor. Okay. If we do like this on the object itself, we can see all the public properties. So hero name, ability. You know, I cannot see the country because it's a static one. So for actually seeing, because it's a static property like this. Okay, so nothing fancy. So it's quite understandable, right? Let's do a little bit of inherence. So we'll define another class called Captain America. Okay, Captain America, and the parent will be the Avenger. Okay, and afterwards afterwards. Okay, the constructor itself, constructor, and then we'll use the base class giving Captain America, using the constructor with one parameter, Captain America, and let's assume, let's set the ability to the shield part, to the, not to the shield part, to the actual ability. Awesome shield. Okay. Now I will declare another variable called Captain. Again, the class doesn't appear yet. Nevertheless, Captain America. And I just need to do this. Let's call it capped. This. And we're not putting any parameters here. And let's do this. Save and hit the F5. So as you can see, we have inherence. Inherence. Now if I want to overload this method, it's possible also. I will blast you with, I don't know, hit you with my ability because my name is blah blah blah. Okay, same method, different classes. See what happens. I will hit you. Okay, so this is a basic example on using classes with PowerShell. Okay. Okay, let's get back to the presentation itself. Okay, what's next? Oh, real case scenarios usage. So just because you have a new way of creating new stuff within PowerShell doesn't mean you need to use it all the time. So the key point here is try to identify when and where to use PowerShell classes. Okay, so when to use it on a core level. When I say on a core level, it's basically if you have anything that will use that needs to use persistency within the objects, like statics or this kind of things. One of the things is DSC resources. So I used to work with DSC means desired state configuration, as I told you before. We can use this PowerShell classes for defining the resources on DSC. We also use use the PowerShell classes within sessions or connections objects. So it's one way of persisting information within PowerShell scripts, PowerShell sessions, and PowerShell scripting, and also on functions parameters. So basically, on a function, on a method, you need to define parameters, and most of the cases, the parameters change across the timeline of the project or the solution. And basically we put like a class defining the parameters, and if we need to change anything, we just need to change the properties within the class itself. On a solution level, you can define whatever you need in a more strict intrinsic structure. And one of the examples that we did was actually the PNP Candy. That's a community effort, and it's based on PowerShell classes, and also a solution that creates teams based on specific templates. So the key phrase on this is, at least for our understanding on the teams that I'm working with that uses PowerShell classes, we use classes for rigid structures and functions, the regular functions from PowerShell, for dynamic ones, for dynamic structures. This is basically the example, the flow for the PNP candy. So here you actually, so the idea here is we build the packages, and packages are like zip files with a specific structure with PowerShell scripts inside with some structure regarding the classes. So the idea here is we use Visual Code or Visual Studio to build those packages, and whenever we build the package, the zip, we upload the package to a specific document library in SharePoint Online. There's a Microsoft Flow, a Power Automate, looking into the list, checking, oh, there's a new package here. It sends a message to the Azure function. The Azure function, what it does, it grabs the zip file and zip it and executes the PowerShell scripts inside of it. This solution is kind of interesting because right now some of our clients are using it not just for deploying for the online also, but also for deploying on-prem. So basically, it's like having a zip file with PowerShell scripts inside. Whenever this package is deployed in a specific place, it will execute the PowerShell scripts with a specific order. And we're mimicking here more or less the same thing that happened with SharePoint on premises. And basically, for building solutions on SharePoint on premises, you usually you compile the solution. You have like the solution, the package of the solution. You deploy it to the server. The server has a timer job that grabs that package and deploys it across the entire farm. That's on-prem. This solution works on the online and works on the on-premises SharePoint. The only difference here is whenever we're using this solution on-prem, instead of Microsoft Flow or Power Automate or Azure Function, we use Windows services to do a specific Windows service to do this. So with the same thing, the client builds a package. The package is uploaded to a specific document library. Here we have a Windows service that's monitoring the list and see, oh, there's a new package here. He grabs the package and zip it and execute the PowerShell scripts inside of it. Okay, this is the visual on the online part. So we have we call it Candy Cauldron. So we upload the solutions here, and afterward the function will grab that solution and zip it. We put it like a structure regarding the name of the solution itself, so we call it PNP Candy, with some information regarding the versions and all these kind of things, and then you have the features also. So basically it's mimicking the same thing that happened a couple of years ago and still happens on the SharePoint on premises. The solution itself, we put a couple of methods in using the PowerShell classes, like the install, deploy, retract, or any kind of configuration that we need to apply on this thing. And basically what you see here is the startup part and the Candy core. So this is the core of the system. And one thing that we did, so this kind of packages can be built with Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. And basically each time you hit the F5 to debug the system, if it's the first time, it asks you for the credentials, and if it's the second time, the credentials are not asked anymore because are saved within the local with that import CLI XML that I talked on the previous slides. And basically what we did, we defined a feature like this, feature content. This is just to see the information within the feature, the feature itself. And then you have a couple of methods that we're using inside that actually it's like a pattern. So each feature has like a connection to the tenant or a connection to the SharePoint, and then it can execute the default feature or can retract or even have a custom method for us to call. Okay, with the same type of the solution, we also develop a solution based on creation for creating teams based on templates. It's the same thing. The only difference here is that you have approval workflows and completion workflows within the entire solution, right? So whenever we request something, and someone needs to approve or reject. If it's approved, basically the team it's created with specific channels, specific tabs. So it's everything here. It's pure PowerShell. So with PowerShell classes, and we're using the same mechanism here. So this is the request that we created, the request form for creating a team, and basically that's it. Okay, so demo time again. Let's do it. So let's remove the presentation. Okay, so Visual Studio. So as I told you before, we defined a project template on Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. So we have like PNP Candy solution. Okay, let's change this. Colates Barcelona. Okay, then I hit the OK to create the project. Wait a little bit. Okay, I already have the project here. So I have a solution with two projects. One, it's focused on it's basically to run the PowerShell part, and the other one is actually what defines the package itself. So we have a folder called lollipops. Each one of the folders has a feature, and basically what the project does, it runs this script, and this script is the one that defines what we need to execute. So we have here that part on the initialization of the project for debug mode. You will see it working, and then you have the core of the feature itself, and it's calling this one. And basically this one, what it does, it has a definition of the feature itself, a custom method. Let's put some breakpoints here, an activate feature, and the deactivate feature. Okay, and basically what we need to do afterwards is to configure. We have a configuration settings file, so they allow the extensions within the package itself. The SharePoint, the URL of the SharePoint site, package name, the versioning, the client, and basically what we do here, the client is usually it's the client name or the solution. We also, as I told you before, we also support on-premises deployments and the PNP templates that we are used to use. So first thing first, let me grab the name of the URL of the URL of the site. So this is a classical site on the online. Grab this and I'll put it here and save it. Okay, it's saved. Next thing is to actually run the script. So let me put it here, a couple of breakpoints here. So this is the feature that's here, already showed me. So let's hit the F5. First thing first, ask us for credentials. That's the one, and the password. It's okay, and then okay. So as you may see, it's the run PowerShell script. So basically, what it does, it goes through the caddy feature that's defined within the project itself. It's fine here. So I'll do a little bit on the debugging part. Doesn't do anything special. It's just the idea here is also to have like a standard or a default template for the clients and for our teams to build this kind of packages. It's supposed to do something, right? Doesn't do anything. We actually can leverage the PNP. So actually we're leveraging the PNP to do this kind of things. Activate feature. So we're going to get the web name. Site name is demo site classical, yeah, and then change the title of the web. That's changed. Yeah, you can also do the activating feature. So this is the bare bones, the core of the feature of the PNP candy itself. Okay, disconnect from the tenant, and remove the module and remove the core. And if I go to the site itself, it's supposed to be changed. It did change, right? So the next time I run this is actually that. Remember though that command like import export CLI XML. So next time I run this, it shouldn't ask me for credentials anymore. If I go to this method, you see, forward path credentials, and if I go to the credentials, I can see the username, but I cannot see the password itself. So that's a way of getting the password encrypted with nobody messing around with that thing. If I run this again, it will change again the title. It should be changed. Yeah, that's it. Another interesting part here is actually, so we have the structure itself. What happens, so the PNP Candy was born because one of the clients wanted to have features working and deployed on SharePoint. Back then, SharePoint 2013, 16, 19, and even the online. And he wanted a package that works, or at least packages with the same types of functionality features that works on both of them, in all of the environments. So what we did afterwards was actually we leveraged a thing called Nugget packages, and what we did was this. We define Nugget packages for each one. Let's see, where is it? No package found. Oh, I was looking to install. So we actually define lollipops for each one of the versions. So if I go to the, if I need to use the Office 365 version, what is this? So this is like a predefined structure on files that we can use for Office 365. If I do this, and you'll look in this thing, yes to all, it's replacing a bunch of things here. So actually what we did, we actually define this structure. So the lollipops there, feature content, a couple of things already in place, add master page and all these kind of things. So this example was for it's still working for classical on Microsoft Online, although it's not the idea here is to use the modern, not the classical ones, but basically the concept is the same. Another interesting thing on this is the actual mimicking of the Hive on the old SharePoint on premises. Okay, so we can leverage both of them. And another curious thing is actually if I do this build, we also did, it's not building anything, it's just building the packages, creating the packages. And basically what it does is first it cleans up everything that's temporary files and all those kind of things, and afterwards it grabs, it crawls the entire structure and builds a file for the zip file, and then afterwards it wraps everything on the zip. Okay, and basically when I go here and I go to the bakery folder and I open this, and I actually have a candy here. Okay, so this is a zip file. This is nothing more like nothing less than that thing. If I rename this thing to the zip file, and open it, so it's basically the same structure that we have here. And whenever the function grabs this and unzip it, it runs this and executes the same thing that we did on the Visual Studio part. Okay. So the visuals for the modern part is like this. So you have the Candy Cauldron where we upload the solution. The function itself opens the packages. It adds entries on a list called Candy Packages and adds the features here. Okay, and that's the baseline for the PNP Candy and for the MES Teams template solutions that we build. That's actually the point. So, and that's it. Finishing and wrapping it up. So, obrigado, gracias. My contacts are here. My Twitter is here. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and anything related to this or other stuff, just buzz. I will try to help. Thank you.